Here's a question for you. How good do you think your mental health would be if you lived with constant yet unpredictable bouts of excruciating physical pain? This is the reality for 1 in 9 Australians who have endometriosis. The chronic illness is much more than just physical pain. Studies show that women with endometriosis are twice as likely as the general population to have depression, and vice versa. Women with depression have been found to be twice as likely as the general population to have endometriosis. Clearly, endo takes a heavy psychological toll that we should talk about much more. Let's start at the beginning of the diagnosis rollercoaster. Getting a diagnosis can be an emotional and expensive process that may take up more than 7.5 years. This year, period pain relief company Overa conducted their Big Bloody Survey to examine the state of menstruation in Australia, surveying over 1,100 people. They found that while 4 in 5 respondents have sought advice from a medical professional to manage their pain, 3 in 5 did not find this advice beneficial.
I think doctors can tend to minimize, the female experience when it comes to dealing with it. My whole life, my mother had always told me, women in our family just have really bad periods.
Overa founder Alice Williams told us her endo diagnosis journey was frustrating.
Like the first time I went and spoke to them, they just said I was constipated and needed to take Metamucil. Then I just went on this whole journey. But you're a young teenage girl. It's like you put 100% trust in that person that you're seeing. And it didn't even cross my mind of maybe this isn't the best advice.
Unfortunately, it's not uncommon to feel like you're being gaslit about your pain. Alice says her doctors refused to believe her concerns about her pain, blaming hysteria and prescribing her antidepressants instead.
And looking back now, I'm like, I was not depressed. I was just physically going through hell, which then obviously affects your mental health.
I feel like I've laid 1,000,000 eggs and they're all hatching.
From a young age, we are taught that periods come with a certain amount of pain by default. What we aren't taught is how much pain is too much. Should I be fainting during my period or be in pain whilst having sex? Normalization of period pain from both patients and doctors can lead to delayed medical attention and diagnosis. The symptoms of endometriosis, such as pelvic pain, heavy menstrual bleeding, and infertility, can be similar to other conditions like pelvic inflammatory disease or irritable bowel syndrome, leading to misdiagnosis or delayed diagnosis for these conditions too. According to Endometriosis Australia, the only way to definitively diagnose someone with endometriosis is via laparoscopy, which is an invasive and expensive procedure that carries a myriad of life-altering risks. Other diagnostic tools like internal ultrasounds, which are traumatic in themselves, are not always effective in detecting endo. Still, patients who choose not to go down this invasive path due to financial, emotional, or cultural reasons risk further delaying a diagnosis. Throughout it all, you're still experiencing severe pain and symptoms while being expected to endure another invasive or expensive test to reach a diagnosis you're not sure exists. The uncertainty, frustration, and lack of clarity can cause serious anxiety and take a toll on your mental health. Once you've survived the trenches and secured an endometriosis diagnosis, the journey doesn't exactly get easier, as the chronic illness has no cure and everyone responds differently to treatment. The process of easing your symptoms and reducing growth is done by trial and error. Let that sink in. Relieving the excruciating pain of 190 million women around the world is based on trial and error.
What the damn hell?
The options include hormonal therapies such as oral contraceptives, progesterone-only pills, and gonadotropin-releasing hormone agonists, which can be used to manage the symptoms.
To tell you the truth, drugs are probably the only reason I haven't killed myself.
However, they can also cause side effects such as mood changes, weight gain, and fatigue. Other options include complete hysterectomies, which still aren't guaranteed to cure your pain, anti-inflammatory diets, multiple laparoscopies, at-home remedies including stretches, hot water bottles, and basically anything you can think might stop the pain. For now, working through this list of might-work options is what endo patients have to look forward to for their entire lives. The lack of stability in return for short-term pain management is a frustrating and frankly hopeless journey. Is it surprising our mental health takes a hit? Even when new customers first try Avira's pain relief device, Alice says they often come with a sense of distrust.
So many things are pushed on us women, especially when it comes to endo. Like, oh, yoga will fix it, or have a peppermint tea. And so if someone suggests Avira, like, our initial reaction is to be like, oh, as if, like, this is going to be able to help my endo pain, because it is so extreme.
Trying to figure out a treatment plan when there is no end in sight will not only make you feel frustrated, but may lead you feeling cynical about the world around you. Endometriosis is often ignored as a public health priority. In 2021, America's National Institutes of Health reported spending $20 million on endometriosis research. In the same year, the NIH reported research spending on diabetes of $1.1 billion. In the UK, endometriosis is still not listed as a research priority with the UK National Institute for Health Research or any other major funder. Endometriosis research in Australia has also historically been underfunded, but there has been a recent increase in funding and attention. Since 2018, Australia has committed $29 million to endometriosis research as part of the $87 million allocated to the National Endometriosis Clinical and Scientific Trials Network. It sounds like a big number, but reproductive health researcher Dr. Mike Armour says the cost of endometriosis in Australia is about $24 million a day. This includes time off work, surgery, treatment, and testing bills. With this context, the funding only covers 3.5 days worth of financial impact. A greater focus on endometriosis research not only means getting closer to a cure and reducing the stress of ongoing financial burdens on individuals, but it could also save millions in lost productivity across society. If you think that whole journey is rough, whilst you struggle to deal with your chronic illness, the people around you may be struggling with it too. Chronic fatigue is a very real symptom of endometriosis. On top of the debilitating pain, the time commitment of treatment and testing demands, people with endo don't always have the bandwidth to be a great partner, friend, or employee. Bailing on birthdays, dates, and having to take days off work are common sacrifices many endo patients have to make. Endometriosis is among the 20 most painful medical conditions alongside cancer, appendicitis, and childbirth. But in a society that disregards women's pain, it's difficult to explain this to someone who hasn't experienced anything like it.
Let's take this period up to 2. Oh, I thought...
This illness can make it almost impossible to maintain relationships, romantic or otherwise. How are you supposed to connect with someone when you feel like no one can understand you? The isolation can have an incredible impact on an already dwindling mental view of the situation, at a time when you ironically need a support system the most.
Leave me alone. I don't even want you here anymore.
Although it's said that endo mostly affects people around their reproductive years, that relies on being diagnosed. In reality, this emotionally taxing journey starts in your late teens. It's meant to be a time of self-discovery, but for endo patients, it's hard to know who you are when all you can focus on is the pain. In the Bloody Big survey, 66% of respondents said every period renders them unable to complete everyday tasks. This includes simple activities like brushing your teeth, getting dressed, feeding yourself, and showering. Common symptoms of depression.
When you are going through so much pain, you're missing out on your social life, like affecting your work life, your social life, your diet, your health, your physical, like so many things. You don't shower for like 5 days. Your physical appearance and, your view of yourself, like when you are at the end of that, like it 100% affects your mental health.
A BBC survey even found that about 50% of women with endometriosis experience suicidal thoughts or feelings related to the illness.
When I'm going through a flare, it's like I can't do anything, I can't think about anything, like I literally just switch off. My brain goes from like this massive, like multifaceted thing to just this like literally the size of a pea.
It's clear that mental health needs to be made a priority in the treatment of endometriosis, not only including it as part of the treatment plan, but tackling the issues that contribute to the psychological hardship. Endometriosis Australia wants increased investment in all areas that the government's endometriosis package covers, particularly in communication, training, and collaboration with medical professionals across the entire health sector. CEO of Endometriosis Australia, Alexis Wolfe, told SBS News, "If we could get to the point where people understood endometriosis in the same way that they do diabetes, then we are doing a really good job. Paying more attention to the disease means paying more attention to the people affected by the disease. In the meantime, Alice encourages us to look to our community for support.
You really do need a support network. Sometimes when you are going through such extreme pain, like you need someone to advocate for you.
It can be really hard for someone who doesn't have endo to understand how to show their support.
Really validating someone's pain, that's a huge help. And then asking them, like, what can I do to help? Like, do you want me to reach out when you're in pain? Do you want me to leave you alone? Like, can I bring you anything? Can I cook for you? Like, everyone's different for like what their needs are, and I think like just speaking about it is the best thing.
There are also endometriosis support groups around Australia, which we'll link down below. Being diagnosed with endometriosis will affect your life both physically and mentally. Although a lot of the experiences seems out of your control, it's important to prioritize your mental well-being through the physically grueling process. It will be a long journey. Alice says that although it might not always feel possible, at the end of the day, you have to try to not put your life on hold. It's okay to reach out to that friend you couldn't speak to for a while, to eat that inflammatory chocolate, or to put yourself out there on that date.
Yes, they maybe don't help with the pain, but I know generally I'll be happier.